Hey guys, welcome back to the Far Better Podcast. Here we are with the next to last penultimate episode with Matt McBrayer as a part of our Season 9. And we're studying today Premillennialism Defies Truth. And we're talking about some quotes from famous men throughout the last several years, and we're going to talk about them one at a time and kind of point out the falls and fallacies of them. Let me read this one to start out. Not in the lifetime of most men has there been so much apprehension. Never has the future seemed so incalculable as at this present time. The domestic economic situation is in chaos. Our dollar is weak throughout the world. Prices are so high as to be utterly impossible. The political cauldron seethes and bubbles with uncertainty. Russia hangs as usual like a cloud, dark and silent upon the horizon. It is a solemn moment. Of our troubles no man can see the end. Matt, that sounds a lot like today, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This was written several years ago, decades ago.
Yeah.
I believe in the 60s, if I remember correctly, or the 80s at the most.
Yeah.
But, at least 40 years ago, minimum, we're talking about here that this was written. And there's something to be said about this where, you can read that quote, and every one of you that was listening to it might have thought, man, they're describing today so well. And that's what we want to talk about. As we begin with this, Matt, let's start with the terms that we have here on page 56. Prophet, true or false. And these are quotes beginning in 1889. I'm going to let you read one, and then I'll read the other, and we'll talk about them if we need to. Go ahead with 1889, though.
The battle of the great day of God Almighty, which will end in AD 1914, is already commenced. That's
swing and a miss, unfortunately.
Over 100 years.
Yes.
110
111.
Years. Yeah, almost. Yeah.
At this point, when it's airing.
When it aired, yeah.
111
years.
1904. The stress of the great time of trouble will be on us soon, somewhere between 1910 and 1912. So I love how 1889 says it will happen in 1914. Then this guy in 1904 is like, actually, it's going to be somewhere between 4 and 2 years earlier than that.
Yeah, it's a little bit sooner. Yeah.
Read 1914 here that we've got.
The great crisis, the great clash is very near. Armageddon may begin next spring.
So he also disagrees with the 1889 quote. It may begin next spring. And you notice as we get through this, we go from a specific date, ironclad, it's 1914, to then all of a sudden, somewhere between 1910 and 1912, to then it may begin next spring.
Yeah.
Next quote, 1915. The present great war in Europe is the beginning of Armageddon. Mm-hmm. Now read 1922 there, Matt.
Yeah, 1922. The date 1925 is even more distinctly indicated by the scriptures than 1914.
Yeah, some 8 years after it was supposed to have happened, they said it was actually 1925 that the Bible was talking about.
I wonder how they come up with that. You add the man-made verses.
You don't want to know. They will calculate things. It was actually how I wrote about it in my article, The Paper on the Antichrist, how say that this is this and this is that. They just make it up.
Yeah.
1923. Our thought is that 1925 is definitely settled by the scriptures. Now, wait a minute. Our thought is, shouldn't it just be 1925 is definitely settled by the scriptures?
That's it.
But that's their thought. Read 1925 there, Matt.
Scriptures definitely fix the fact we may expect 1925 to witness the return of these faithful men, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
1931.
Yeah.
So,
oops.
There was a measure of disappointment. That's why I love that. It cracks me up so much every time I read that. There was a measure of disappointment on the part of Jehovah's faithful ones on earth concerning the years 1914, 1918, which we didn't even see, and 1925. And they also learned to quit fixing dates. Watch 1941. Here you go.
Sorry. Armageddon is surely near, soon, within a few years.
It just gets more and more further away.
5 years later.
1946. Armageddon should come sometime before 1972.
Probably.
Let's give ourselves a wider berth here.
Like nearly 30 years. Let's go with that one. All right.
There you go. This is W.C. Stevenson.
Now it is firmly maintained that by the autumn of the year 1975, the Battle of Armageddon will have been fought and God's new
World.
world will have been established.
W.C. Stevenson, circuit servant. And then Errol Burton in 1969 wrote, within months, or at the most 5 years,
Yeah.
the end of the world as we have known it will occur, and a 1,000-year reign of Jesus will begin. So let's point out some things as we're talking about this, because these right here, Jesus made it clear, no man knows the hour. So I've always teased Megan, because this isn't the only time this has happened. I actually saw, of course, we know right now, recently Jimmy Carter died, President Carter. Mm-hmm. And there was this prophet on TikTok that was talking about how a year ago I predicted that this was going to happen. And he was showing the clip where he's like, I saw President Carter in a vision last night, and a clicking sound happened. And I was thinking, well, what does the clicking sound mean? He's like, and then it was this door that will be opened, and there will be this great prosperity that's coming upon us. That was all the way back in 2023, February of 2023. Nearly 2 years later, Jimmy Carter actually dies, almost 2 years from when that prophecy was made. And now he's using that as like, see?
I believe it.
Got it right.
I believe it now.
It's the equivalence of me going into the hospital and going, who is near death? Walking in there and going, when you die, God will return. Maybe.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Unfortunately, and I was proud of some of the commenters, because some of the commenters was like, why do people believe this?
Yeah.
Why do they believe in this? But that happens all the time, where someone's like, I've done the calculations, I've done all of the math, and I know for a fact it's going to happen. And I've told my wife, you want to plan date night then? Because I know that God's not coming back that day. Because no man knows the hour. So every time a man guesses that God's coming back, 2012 was one of those years where it was, that's the end times, it's going to happen. 2000 was when the computers were not going to be able to handle the date change or whatever, and we were going to go into oblivion. And
Y2K,
all of these, Y2K, that's
man.
it. I mean, Y2K,
It was on the zippers.
signs of the times.
It was it.
Y2K, it's going to happen. And yet here we are, literally in the year 2025 now, 13 years removed from 2012, 25 years removed from Y2K, and the world is continuing to, spin as it always has. And no matter what happens, the biggest takeaway I've always taken from these people is, like we talked about, how it got more and more ambiguous. We started with, no doubt about it, 1914.
Definitely.
And then there was some disappointment, I will admit, when we got it wrong. And that's the thing. We talk about Christ being a failure when it comes to pre-mill. That's what they say. Mm-hmm. How about you guys, buddy? You make all these predictions, you make all these guesses, and they don't come true. Why should I take anything that you say? That's like the people that would make me mad, like the fantasy football gurus. They don't know what they're talking about for every league standard, because not every league's scoring is the same way. Not every league's rosters are set the same way. But you can follow a guy who does the basic ESPN format or Yahoo format or whatever, and you can do everything that he says and wonder why you're losing your fantasy football leagues every year. Well, it's probably because your league is not set up the way that his is, and you're following after something that makes no sense. Or, as some people have said, this has been a new thing on TikTok, and then I'm going to shut up, but somebody will be like, on December 25th, 2024, the great quarterback known as Patrick Mahomes in a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers will break his ankle, and it's posted December 20th. And they're trying to make you think that they're like from the future. Mm-hmm. None of them are right, though. They're like, go watch what he said on what would happen on November the 9th or whatever, and it's like so off.
Well, and most of these guys that actually make some predictions, like we've already seen, they make it so vague that it could happen, and
just
It
maybe.
did. And it's like there's going to be prosperity when Jimmy Carter dies, and we're like, well, now we've got President Trump, and we're going to see some prosperity, and so my vision was right, and well, it's just so vague, It'd be much different if it was, at this day, at this time.
Yep.
This person is going to do this thing, and they don't even know that they're going to do this thing.
And you get it right.
Yeah, and you nail it.
Because that's what prophecy actually is. Prophecy is not some guesswork. Prophecy is saying, hey, there's going to be this falling of a king. Mm-hmm. Thousands, hundreds,
Yeah.
before it ever happens, and then it happens.
Yeah, or like Cyrus is going to go and do this, and he's like, "What? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do."
And it's the equivalent of me guessing the next 42 Super Bowl winners correct without any issues. Not just who's going to win, what's the score going to be?
Yeah.
Who's wearing the home jerseys and the away jerseys? I'd have to get all of that right for you to truly look at me and go, excuse me, wow, Michael, he's a prophet.
Yeah.
Like I can guess. I guess the final score will be 27-23. And if it is, it doesn't mean I'm a prophet. It means I guessed right. It means I got lucky and I made a good guess. It doesn't mean that if I say, hey, the Steelers will win the Super Bowl by a score of 31-19, and that's the exact score, I don't take away from that, God has chosen me. But that's what kind of happens here. These people believe. We've done the calculations, and we know for an exact fact it is surely near, soon, within a few years, sometime before 1972. And that's the issue. Matt, you have anything else you want to add on this?
No, not really.
And we'll be back next week to talk about a couple more of these charts as we look at these things. But we'll give you kind of an indication of who all, teaches this and how it's so popular. Like, I appreciated what you said because I think a lot of people probably listened to the fact that this was going to be the last 2 seasons of Far Better and thought, are you kidding me? That's what we're going to cover. It's second in popularity only to one other doctrine, and we're going to talk about that next week on your last episode with us. Matt, thanks for being with us. Don't forget to please God now so our eternity can be far better.